The Nari scout ship tore through Earth's atmosphere, trailing smoke and debris before smashing into the thick pine forests of northern Michigan. The impact shook the ground for miles, sending birds scattering into the evening sky. Inside the crumpled, metal hull, Day pushed aside a fallen panel and crawled from the wreckage. She was small by human standards, barely 4 feet tall, with skin the color of a summer sky and 4 slender arms. The crash had left a gash on her forehead that leaked purple fluid, but she ignored it, immediately checking the ship's systems. The navigation was destroyed, the engine core fractured beyond repair, coordinates unknown. Communication systems offline, she muttered to herself, her voice melodic despite her frustration. Emergency protocol activated. Day pressed a button on her wrist device, sending a faint pulse skyward, a beacon that would take days to reach her homeworld. She climbed onto a nearby boulder and scanned the unfamiliar landscape. Forest stretched in all directions with mountains visible to the north. Her body already felt heavy, the first warning sign. She needed to keep moving. The sound of snapping twigs made her spin around. A human male stood at the edge of the crash, his hiking backpack half open, water bottle frozen halfway to his lips. "Hello?" Han called out cautiously, eyes wide with disbelief. Are you okay?" Day tilted her head, her translator implant processing his words. "You, human, I need assistance." Her English came out choppy but understandable. Han took a step back. "You're actually an alien. A real alien." "No time for obvious statements," Day said, jumping down from the rock with surprising agility. Her 4 arms moved independently as she gathered supplies from the wreckage. "Must reach elevated position before darkness completes. Help carry these." She thrust a bag of strange metal objects into Han's arms before he could protest. Wait," Han said, his mind racing to catch up with reality. "Who are you? What happened? Are there more of you coming?" Day paused her frantic movement just long enough to face him. "I am Scout Day of the Nari Exploration Fleet. Ship malfunction. Crashed. Rescue will come, but not soon." She pointed to the mountains. "Need to reach high ground for better signal. Must keep moving." "Keep moving? Why the rush? We should call someone." "No!" Day's voice sharpened. "No other humans. And yes, rush important. Very important." She tapped her chest with her upper right arm. "Nari biology requires constant movement. If I stay still too long, hibernation begins, then death." Han stared at her. "You'll die if you stop moving? 8 of your Earth hours maximum, then systems shut down, permanent." She started walking north, her stride purposeful despite her injuries. "This is why I need you. Keep moving or else." Han hurried after her, mind reeling. "Or else what?" "Or else I become pretty blue statue," she said without turning around. Very tragic. Despite his shock, Han found himself following her through the trees. Her determination was strangely compelling. "I'm Han," he called after her. "Han Jiwoo." "Han," she repeated, testing the name. Good strong sound, short, efficient. As they hiked deeper into the forest, Han peppered her with questions. Day answered in brief bursts between scanning their surroundings and checking her wrist device. "Our species evolved on planet with high gravity pulses," she explained when Han asked more about the need for movement. "Those who keep moving survive. Those who stay still get crushed. Now it's in our biology." The sun began to sink behind the trees, painting the forest in golden light. Han noticed Day's pace quickening as shadows lengthened. "We should make camp soon," he suggested. "It's dangerous to hike these woods at night." Day's skin flickered from vibrant blue to a slightly duller shade. "No camp, no stop. I walk through your night." "But I can't see in the dark," Han protested. Day reached into her pack and pulled out a small silver disc. With a twist of her lower hands, it illuminated with bright white light. "Problem solved," she said, tossing it to him. As night fell completely, Han watched in fascination as Day's larger eyes adapted, reflecting the moonlight like a cat's. She moved differently now, more rigid, her steps becoming almost mechanical. "Are you okay?" he asked when she stumbled over a root. First warning signs, she admitted. Need to maintain movement. Han checked his watch. They'd been moving for nearly 5 hours since the crash. So you have 3 hours before the hibernation thing? Correct. Need to reach Ridge before. Then? She pointed to a rocky outcropping barely visible in the moonlight. Water there. Can collect morning dew. Important for my system. Han felt a strange sense of responsibility washing over him. This alien girl, fierce and determined, was trusting him with her life. As they pushed through the darkened forest, jumping over fallen logs and skirting around brambles, he made a silent promise to help her survive, whatever it took. Tell me more about your people, he said, hoping conversation would keep her alert. Do all Nari look like you? Despite her exhaustion, a hint of pride entered Day's voice. I am smaller than most. Still growing. Adults have 6 arms, not 4. She ducked under a low branch. We are explorers, always moving. Even our cities move. Giant platforms that never stop. That sounds incredible, Han said sincerely. Day glanced back at him, her expression softening for the first time. Perhaps you will see someday, if we keep moving. The night grew colder as they climbed higher. Han could tell Dee was struggling now, her movements becoming jerky. But her determination never wavered, even as her skin tone continued to fade, toward a worrying gray. Keep moving or else, she whispered to herself like a mantra. Keep moving or else. The first light of dawn found Han and Day perched on the rocky ridge, exhausted, but alive. Han had dozed against a boulder while Day paced in tight circles, never stopping even as fatigue clearly weighed on her 4 limbs. Her blue skin had regained some of its vibrant color with the morning light. You actually sleep while walking? Han asked, rubbing his stiff neck. He offered her some water from his canteen. Day took the water with her lower right hand while her other 3 arms continued various tasks, checking her beacon device, adjusting her pack, and pointing toward their next destination. Not true sleep like humans, she explained between sips. Half consciousness. Brain rests in sections, body keeps moving. She handed back the canteen. Very efficient. Han stretched his tired muscles. He'd barely slept, too worried about his alien companion's condition. So what's the plan now? Keep heading north? Yes. Higher mountains there. Day pointed to a distant peak. Better signal strength, maybe 3 days walking. 3 days. Han checked his phone. No service as expected in this remote area. I only packed food for an overnight hike. Day rummaged through her survival pack and pulled out several small silver pouches. Nari emergency rations, not delicious but nutritious for humans too. Han accepted one skeptically. Inside was a paste that looked like blue peanut butter. He took a cautious taste and was surprised by the pleasant honey-like flavor with a hint of cinnamon. Not bad, he admitted. See? I help you, you help me. Day was already moving again, her gait smoother now that she'd recovered from the near hibernation. Balance. They descended from the ridge into a valley of towering pines. As they walked, Han learned more about the Nari. They were peaceful explorers who had visited 12 different solar systems, but Earth was their first contact with intelligent life outside their own. Why Earth? Han asked, helping Day over a fallen tree that was taller than she was. Water planet. Rare. Precious. She gestured at a nearby stream. My mission was simple observation, no contact planned. She sighed, all 4 shoulders slumping slightly. Ship malfunction changed mission. So you weren't supposed to meet humans at all? Correct. Big trouble when rescued. Despite her words, she didn't seem particularly worried. Worth it though. Humans interesting. Han laughed. You might be the first visitor to think so. By midday, they reached a wide river cutting through the valley. The spring melt had turned it into a rushing torrent, far too dangerous to cross. Directly. Han studied the riverbanks looking for a narrow crossing point. We'll have to follow it upstream, he decided. Look for a better spot. Day stared at the water with unmistakable concern. How long to find crossing? Could be hours. Maybe we should rest here and— No rest, Day interrupted, her skin briefly dulling. Must keep moving, always moving. Han saw the fear in her large almond-shaped eyes. Hey, it's okay, we won't— Stop, I promise. They followed the riverbank for 2 miles before finding a section where several large boulders created a natural crossing. Han tested the first few rocks, slippery but manageable. We can hop across here, he said. I'll go first, then help you. Day watched him nervously. Water dangerous for Nari. Density wrong. We sink quickly. I won't let you fall, Han promised. He made his way carefully across, then turned to guide her. Day hesitated at the edge, all 4 arms trembling slightly. Trust me, Han called, extending his hand. With visible effort, Day stepped onto the first boulder. Her movements, usually so fluid, became stiff and awkward. Han coached her across, rock by rock, until they reached the middle of the river, where the largest gap waited. Big jump, Day said, eyeing the rushing water below. I'll catch you, Han assured her, bracing himself on the far rock. Day took 3 quick steps and leapt. For a moment she seemed to hang in the air, all 4 arms outstretched. Then she landed, 1 foot slipping on the wet surface. Han lunged forward, catching her before she could fall. Her skin felt cool and surprisingly smooth against his hands. See, you made it, he said, helping her regain balance. Day's eyes widened in what might have been a smile. Good teamwork. The afternoon brought new challenges as dark clouds gathered overhead. The first drops of rain fell as they entered a denser part of the forest. Storm coming, Han warned, glancing up at the darkening sky. We should find shelter. No. Stopping, Day reminded him. I know, but— A crack of thunder interrupted him, followed by a sudden downpour. Within minutes they were soaked. The temperature dropped rapidly, and Han noticed Day's movements becoming sluggish as the cold rain pelted her skin. This is bad for you, isn't it? He asked, raising his voice over the storm. Day nodded, her usual determination flickering. Cold accelerates hibernation process. Han scanned their surroundings and spotted a hollowed-out, lightning-struck tree. There, we can at least get out of the rain. He guided her to the natural shelter. Inside, protected from the worst of the downpour, he removed his jacket and draped it over her shivering form. Must keep moving, she insisted weakly, pacing in the confined space. You're still moving, Han pointed out, just in a smaller area. While the storm raged outside, Han learned that on Dai's world, constant movement had shaped every aspect of Nari culture. They built homes on rotating platforms. Their art depicted motion. Even their language was full of verbs and light on nouns. No word for still in Nari language, she explained, continuing her tight circles inside the tree. Closest translation means dying. As night approached and the storm showed no signs of letting up, Han noticed Day struggling to maintain her movement. Her previously bright eyes had dulled, and her lower set of arms hung limply at her sides. We need to get you warmed up, he said, worry creeping into his voice. Keep moving, she mumbled, her steps becoming irregular. Or else— Han caught her as she stumbled. I won't let you stop, he promised. We'll keep going together. He supported her weight and began walking her in circles, almost like a dance. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. But inside their shelter, Han focused entirely on keeping his alien friend in motion. One step after another, through the darkening night, her life literally depending on their continued movement. The Yao storm passed sometime in the early morning hours, leaving behind a forest dripping with rainwater and smelling of wet earth. Han had kept Day moving throughout the night, supporting her weight when her legs threatened to give out. By sunrise, her color had improved slightly, but Han could tell she was still struggling. We need to reach those foothills today, he said, pointing to the rising terrain ahead. How are you feeling? Day flexed her forearms in sequence as if testing their responsiveness. Systems functioning at reduced capacity, but operational. She looked up at him with those large, expressive eyes. Thank you for the night assistance. That's what friends do, Han replied with a tired smile. They set off again, following game trails through the increasingly steep terrain. The going was slower now, with Day needing frequent help on the climbs. Around midday, they reached a clearing that offered a sweeping view of the valley they'd crossed. Han was about to suggest they stop for a quick meal when he noticed something in the distance. Thin columns of smoke rising from the forest near the crash site. "Someone's down there," he said, pointing. Day followed his gaze, her posture immediately stiffening. "Not rescue team. Too soon." She fumbled with her wrist device, adjusting settings. After a moment, she looked up with alarm. "Human vehicles approaching from south and east, military signatures." "How can you tell?" "Energy readings, similar patterns across many worlds." She began walking faster, her exhaustion seemingly forgotten. "We must hurry." Han jogged to keep up with her suddenly renewed pace. "Wait, maybe they could help you? Our government has resources." "No!" Day's voice was sharp with fear. "New species discovery protocol is same on all developing worlds. Capture, study, dissection." The word hung in the air between them. Han wanted to argue that she was wrong. But deep down, he knew better. A foreign alien would be seen as a potential threat, a scientific specimen, not a person. "Okay," he said finally. "We keep moving." They pushed deeper into the foothills, sticking to dense tree cover whenever possible. By mid-afternoon, the distant sound of helicopter rotors confirmed Day's warning. Someone was searching the forest, working their way up from the crash site. "They're tracking the beacon," Day realized aloud. "Can you turn it off?" She shook her head. "Need it for rescue, but..." She adjusted something on her wrist device. "Can mask signature temporarily. Buy time." The mountains loomed closer now, their peaks still snow-capped even in late spring. Han spotted a narrow ravine cutting between two hills, offering a sheltered path forward. As they entered the shadowy passage, the helicopter sounds faded, replaced by the gurgle of a small stream winding along the ravine floor. "Almost to mountains," Day said, her breathing labored. Han could see that the constant movement was taking its toll. 3 days without proper rest would challenge any human, let alone someone recovering from a crash landing. The ravine gradually narrowed, its walls rising higher on either side. The late afternoon sun barely reached the bottom, leaving them walking in cool shadows. Han was just beginning to relax when he heard voices echoing from ahead. "Someone's coming," he whispered, pulling Day behind a large boulder. They peered around the rock to see 4 people in dark uniforms making their way down the ravine. Even at a distance, the rifles they carried were unmistakable. "Government agents." Han breathed. "They must have guessed where we're heading." Day scanned their surroundings frantically. "Trapped. Ravine walls too steep to climb." Han spotted a dark opening in the rock face just behind them. "There. Looks like an old mining tunnel." The voice of one of the approaching agents carried clearly. "Now. Footprints continue this way. They can't be far." With no time to consider alternatives, Han guided Day into the tunnel entrance. The darkness swallowed them immediately, forcing Han to use Day's light disc to see. The tunnel extended deep into the hillside, timber supports holding back the mountain's weight. "This must connect to those old copper mines I've read about," Han whispered. "If we're lucky, there might be another exit." They moved deeper into the tunnel, the air growing colder and damper with each step. After several minutes, they reached a junction where the passage split in 3 directions. "Which way?" Day asked, her voice barely audible. Before Han could answer, they heard footsteps at the tunnel entrance. The agents had followed them inside. "Hide your light," Han whispered urgently. In the sudden darkness, he felt Day's hand, smooth and cool with 6 fingers, grip his own. He led her down the rightmost passage, moving as quietly as possible while keeping contact with the rough wall. The agents' lights flickered at the junction behind them. "Split up," a gruff voice ordered. "They're in here somewhere." Han and Day pressed on until they reached a larger chamber where ancient mining equipment sat rusting. Decades-old carts and tools created a maze of potential hiding spots. Han guided Day behind a large ore cart, just as flashlight beams swept into the chamber. 2 agents entered, their lights cutting through the darkness. "Search everything," one said. The alien can't have gotten far. Han felt Day trembling beside him. At first he thought it was fear, but then he realized something worse. Her body was growing rigid, her movements slowing. The cold tunnel air and hours of exertion were accelerating her hibernation process. "Keep moving," she whispered, her voice faint. "Or else." Han gripped her shoulders, feeling her smaller secondary arms already stiffening. If she entered hibernation, now the agents would find them for sure. He needed to keep her moving, but any movement would give away their position. "Trust me," he whispered, squeezing her hand. The agents moved methodically through the chamber, checking behind each piece of equipment. Han waited until they were both facing away, then grabbed a rock and threw it down the left passage. "Piwem?" Clatter echoed loudly in the confined space. "There!" one agent shouted, and both ran toward the sound. "Now," Han said, pulling Day to her feet. Her movements were alarmingly slow, her smaller arms completely rigid. They hurried toward the third passage, Day stumbling with each step. Behind them, shouts indicated the agents had realized the trick. Flashlight beams swung wildly around the chamber. "Stop where you are," a voice commanded. Han pulled Day into the passage just as a gunshot rang out, the bullet splintering wood inches from his head. They ran blindly down the dark tunnel, Day growing heavier in his arms with each step. "Can't," she gasped, her voice barely audible. "Keep moving." Her body was shutting down. With hibernation setting in rapidly, Day collapsed against him, her once vibrant blue skin now a dull gray. Han's arms burned with effort as he carried Day through the darkness of the mining tunnel. Her small body felt strangely heavy, as if gravity pulled on her more strongly now that hibernation was setting in. Behind them, the shouts of the agents grew fainter. They'd taken a wrong turn in the maze-like passages. "Stay with me, Day," Han whispered, jostling her gently as he walked. Each small movement seemed to bring a flicker of awareness back to her dulling eyes. The tunnel sloped upward, and Han felt a faint breeze, a sign of another exit. He followed the fresh air, stumbling over loose rocks and rotting support beams. His lungs burned from exertion, but he refused to slow down. Dee's life literally hung in his arms. After what felt like hours, Han spotted a pinprick of light ahead. The tunnel exit opened halfway up a steep hillside, hidden by overgrown bushes. Han pushed through, emerging into the purple light of dusk. Stars were already appearing in the eastern sky. He looked down at Day. Her color had faded to a sickly gray, and only her main arms showed any movement, weak twitching motions that seemed beyond her control. Her smaller secondary arms hung completely, rigid at her sides. "Don't give up," he told her, starting down the slope. "I have an idea." The small town of Pine Ridge sat nestled in the valley below, its lights just beginning to twinkle in the growing darkness. Han had visited his sister there many times. Sun worked at the town's only physical therapy clinic. If anyone could help him keep Day moving, it was Sun. Han took a deer trail down the hillside, constantly shifting Day in his arms, rocking her body, anything to create movement. Every few minutes, her eyes would flutter open, recognition briefly lighting them before fading again. Almost there, he promised, though he wasn't sure she could hear him anymore. The first houses of Pine Ridge appeared through the trees. Han stuck to backyards and side streets, avoiding the few people still out at this hour. His sister's small, blue house sat on the edge of town, backs to the forest, perfect for their approach. Han pounded on the back door, Day cradled in his arms. "Son, it's me. Open up." The door swung open to reveal his sister in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, her expression changing from annoyance to shock as she took in the scene. "Han? What on earth?" "She's dying," Han interrupted, pushing past her into the house. "I need your help, now." Sun stared at the alien in her brother's arms, her professional training kicking in despite her shock. "Put her on the couch. Tell me what's happening." Han laid Day down gently, still rocking her body to create movement. "She's Nari, an alien. Her species dies if they stop moving for too long. She's been in constant motion her entire life until now." Sun knelt beside them, her trained eye assessing Day's condition. How long has she been like this? It started in the tunnel, maybe an hour ago. Han looked up at his sister desperately. Her people die if they stay still for 8 hours. We've got maybe 7 hours left to save her. Sun ran her hands through her hair, thinking rapidly. Okay, if movement is what she needs, movement is what we'll give her. She stood up decisively. Help me get her to the garage. Sun's garage had been converted into a home gym and therapy space for her patients. Exercise equipment lined the walls, including a treadmill, stationary bike, and various rehabilitation tools. We need to create constant motion, she explained, clearing space in the center of the room. Get her on this therapy table. Together, they lifted Day's increasingly rigid body onto the padded table. Sun immediately began manipulating Day's limbs using techniques designed for patients with muscle atrophy. This is just temporary, she said, moving Day's arms in circular motions. We need something more sustainable. Han watched his sister work, amazed at how quickly she'd accepted the situation. What about some kind of motion machine? Sun snapped her fingers. The vibration platform, and the tilt board from my vestibular therapy kit. She pointed to a corner. Get those and grab my toolkit from under the workbench. For the next 2 hours, Han and Sun worked feverishly, creating what Sun called a perpetual motion harness. They combined the vibration platform with motorized components from several exercise machines, creating a device that would keep Dai's body in constant, gentle motion. If her biology responds to movement the way you described, Sun explained, as she attached the final connections, this should prevent complete hibernation. The vibrations will stimulate her cellular structure, while the harness keeps her core and limbs in motion. They carefully transferred Day to the makeshift device. Her skin had grown alarmingly pale, now a light ash color with barely a hint of blue. The machine hummed to life, creating gentle, wave-like movements throughout her small body. Now we wait, Sun said, adjusting the settings, and hope her biology responds. Han collapsed into a chair, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Thank you, he said simply. Sun handed him a bottle of water and a sandwich. Eat. Then you're going to tell me everything, from the beginning. As Han recounted the past 3 days, Sun continued monitoring Day, making small adjustments to the machine. By midnight, they noticed the first encouraging sign, a faint blue tinge returning to Day's fingertips. It's working, Sun whispered. Her color is coming back. By dawn, the change was unmistakable. The blue had spread through Day's arms and was creeping up her neck. Her smaller secondary arms had regained some flexibility, and her chest rose and fell in a more natural rhythm. Her physiology is fascinating, Sun said, examining the readings from the medical monitors she'd attached. Her cardiovascular system has triple redundancy and her neural pathways are unlike anything I've ever seen. Han smiled at his sister's professional curiosity. So she'll recover? I think so. But Sun's response was cut short by the sound of vehicles outside. Han peered through the window blinds to see 3 black SUVs pulling up along the street. Men in dark uniforms stepped out, showing badges to neighbors who had come outside to investigate. They found us, he said, his heart sinking. The government agents. Sun joined him at the window. How? We were so careful. They must have tracked our path from the mine. Han turned back to Day, whose eyes were beginning to flutter open. We need to move her again. She's not stable enough yet, Sun protested. The hibernation could return if we disconnect her now. A knock sounded at the front door, firm and official. This is Agent Kwan with the Department of Special Investigations. We need to speak with you immediately. Han and Sun exchanged panicked looks. The machine, Han said suddenly. Can we make it portable? Sun's eyes lit up. The backup generator and the wheelchair battery pack. If we combine them. She was already moving, gathering components. It won't be pretty, but it might work. Another, louder knock. Ma'am, we have reason to believe you're harboring a non-terrestrial entity. Please open the door. working frantically. They transferred the essential components of the motion harness to a makeshift backpack system, powered by Sun's medical equipment batteries. As they worked, Day's eyes opened fully for the first time since the mine. "Han," she whispered, her voice weak but alert. "Danger?" "Yes," he confirmed, helping Sun secure the portable harness to Day's body. "But we're getting you out of here." "How?" Sun asked, glancing nervously toward the front of the house where agents were now visible through the windows. Han looked up at the mountain peak visible through the garage window, their original destination. "The same way we planned. We reached the summit for the strongest signal." He turned to his sister. "But I can't ask you to come. You've already risked enough." Sun zipped up her jacket and grabbed a backpack. "She's my patient now," she said firmly, "and no one tells me when to stop treatment." The pounding at the door grew louder, joined by the sound of someone trying the back entrance. "There's a service path behind the houses," Sun said, opening the garage's back door. "It leads straight to the mountain trails." As shouts came from inside the house, Han lifted Day, now wrapped in the humming portable harness, and followed his sister into the forest, the mountain peak looming above them like a distant promise. The mountain trail grew steeper with every step. Han carried Day on his back, her small form wrapped in the humming motion harness that Sun had built. The device looked like a strange backpack of wires and motors, but it was working. Day's blue color had deepened, and her smaller arms now moved weakly against his shoulders. "Are they still following?" Sun asked, pausing to catch her breath, on a rocky outcrop. Han looked back down the mountain. In the valley below, black dots moved through the forest, agents spreading out in search patterns. Further away, a helicopter circled near the town. "Yes, but we've got a good lead," he said. "How much farther to the summit?" Sun pointed to the rocky peak above them. "Maybe 2 hours at this pace. The trail gets rougher past the tree line." Day stirred against Han's back. "Need to reach peak before sunset," she murmured. "Transmission window optimal then." The motion harness whirred softly as it kept her body in constant, gentle movement. Sun had explained that the batteries would last about 5 hours. They didn't have time to waste. They pushed on, the forest gradually thinning as they climbed higher. The spring air grew colder, and patches of snow appeared in shaded areas. Han's legs burned with exhaustion, but he refused to slow down. "You've known her for 3 days, Sun said during a brief water break. "Why risk everything for her?" Han watched Day as she tested her limbs, the movement harness allowing her to practice small motions while maintaining the vital constant stimulation. "Because she trusted me," he said simply, "and because it's the right thing to do." Day looked up at him, her large eyes reflecting the afternoon sun. "On my world we have saying, those who move together survive together. You are good mover, Han." Sun smiled at the alien's awkward compliment. "Well, let's keep moving then." Above the tree line, the trail disappeared into a field of loose rock and boulders. They picked their way carefully, helping each other across difficult sections. The higher they climbed, the stronger the wind became, whipping around them with increasing force. "Look." Sun pointed to the valley below. 3. Helicopters were approaching the mountain now, their dark shapes stark against the green forest. On the trail below, figures in tactical gear moved steadily upward. "They're closing in," Han said grimly. Day adjusted something on her wrist device. Signal strength improving, almost enough. The final stretch to the summit was the hardest, a near-vertical climb over weather-worn rocks. Han tied a makeshift harness from his backpack straps to secure Day against him, allowing him to use both hands for climbing. Sun led the way, finding the best route up the treacherous face. When they finally pulled themselves onto the summit plateau, the sun was low on the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds. The wind howled across the exposed peak, threatening to push them back down the mountain they'd fought so hard to climb. Day immediately began adjusting her wrist device, the motion harness whirring louder, as if sensing the importance of the moment. "How long until your people can respond?" Han shouted over the wind. "If signal reaches, minutes only," Day replied. Rescue ships always close. The distant thump of helicopter rotors grew louder. We've got company, Sun warned, pointing to the first helicopter cresting the ridge nearby. It hovered there, unable to land on the rocky summit, but close enough for them to see agents preparing to rappel down. Just a little more time, Han said, positioning himself between the helicopter and Day. The wrist device emitted a high-pitched tone, and Day looked up with renewed energy. Signal sent, full strength. The helicopters moved closer, their downdraft battering the small group on the summit. Through a loudspeaker, a voice boomed, "This is Agent Director Park. You are surrounded. Release the non-terrestrial entity immediately." Han and Sun stood protectively on either side of Day, who continued working frantically on her device. The first agents were touching down on the edge of the summit, weapons raised. "Surrender now," the voice commanded. "Look," Sun gasped, pointing skyward. Above them, the clouds parted as something massive pushed through. A ship unlike anything human eyes had witnessed before. It seemed to shimmer and pulse, its metallic surface constantly rippling as if the entire vessel was in perpetual motion. Even stationary in the sky, it gave the impression of movement like a mirage on a hot road. The helicopters veered away sharply, their pilots clearly shocked by the enormous craft now dominating the airspace. On the ground, the agents stood frozen, weapons forgotten as they stared upward. A beam of blue light shot down from the ship, engulfing Day, Han, and Sun in its gentle glow. Han felt a strange tingling sensation, followed by a peculiar weightlessness. "My people," Day said, her voice stronger now. They came. The light around them intensified, and Han realized they were being lifted off the summit. Below, he could see the agents rushing forward, too late to stop what was happening. Inside the ship, they were gently deposited in a circular chamber where the floor, walls, and ceiling all pulsed with subtle, continuous motion. 3 tall Nari approached, each with 6 arms and deep blue skin patterned with swirling marks. Unlike Day, they didn't walk so much as flow across the room. Their movements, so fluid they seemed almost to dance. The tallest Nari spoke, the words translated by a device similar to Day's. "Scout Day, your emergency signal was received. These humans aided you?" Day stepped forward, the motion harness still humming against her body. Despite her small stature, she stood proudly before the adult Nari. "They saved my life. Understood? Our biology, created technology to prevent hibernation." She gestured to Han and Sun. "They risked everything for me." The tall Nari studied them with large, curious eyes. "Remarkable. Most species fear difference." "Not all of us," Sun said, meeting the alien's gaze. On a view screen nearby, they could see the government agents on the summit, some pointing weapons at the ship, others speaking urgently into communication devices. "Your authorities seem less understanding," the Nari observed. "They're scared," Han explained. "This is our first contact with life beyond Earth. For some, that's terrifying." The Nari conferred briefly among themselves, their 6 arms moving in complex patterns that seemed to be part of their communication. Finally, the leader turned back to them. "Then perhaps we should ease their fears." A new beam of light shot down to the summit, this time creating a projection of the ship's interior. "Your leaders will see that we come in peace and that humans have already proven themselves worthy allies." On the summit, the agents lowered their weapons, clearly receiving new orders through their earpieces. The standoff was transforming into a first contact scenario. The Nari exploration fleet has never encountered a species that understood our need for constant motion, the leader told Han and Sun. "You have opened a path for friendship between our worlds." Day approached her human friends, her color fully restored now. Motion harness design, very ingenious. Our scientists will study, perhaps improve for future emergencies. She looked at Sun. "Your medical knowledge valuable to us." "Are you offering a cultural exchange?" Sun asked, eyes wide with excitement. "If your leaders agree, knowledge should always flow, like movement itself." Han watched as Nari diplomats prepared to descend to the summit. After days of running, hiding, and fighting, it was hard to believe they'd actually succeeded. Day took his hand in her small 6-fingered one. Thank you for keeping me moving. What happens now? He asked. Day's eyes crinkled in what he now recognized as her version of a smile. Now, many possibilities. She pressed a small device into his palm, a miniature version of her communicator. But one certainty, keep this with you. What is it? Direct link. To me. Her voice took on the commanding tone he remembered from their first meeting. Keep moving or else we never talk again. As the Nari ship hovered above Earth, beginning humanity's first official extraterrestrial diplomatic relations, Han clutched the small device and smiled. Sometimes, he realized, the most important human trait isn't standing still and thinking things through. It's knowing when to keep moving forward no matter what stands in your way.